Could I ask you to take your seats, please? We've heard from NSA, the White House, and industry. I can't think of a better way to round out our opening session of IAS this year than hearing from the legislative branch. Congressman Lynn Westmoreland represents the 3rd District of Georgia. An entrepreneur, he founded his own building company, and while running that business, he was elected to the Georgia State House. He served in the State House for 12 years, eventually becoming elected as the Republican leader. He was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 2004 and was reelected to his 6th term just this last year. In the current Congress, Representative Westmoreland serves on the House Financial Services Committee, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, where he chairs the subcommittee on NSA and cybersecurity. He's also on the House Select Committee on Benghazi and the Steering Committee. Please join me in welcoming Representative Lynn Westmoreland to the stage.
Thank you, Murray. Glad to see y'all, and thank you for inviting me today. When I was in high school, I played a little football, and Coach came to me one day and he said, Lynn, he said, we've got an inquiry from you from a major college. And I started smiling. He said, but don't worry, you're not smart enough to go there. So when I got elected to Congress, Coach Walls called me up and we met. And he said, Lynn, how did you do that? And I said, what? He said, how did you get elected to Congress? I said, well, Coach, you don't have to be smart to be in Congress. So I just want to share that a little bit with you. I guess there's a light up here. First of all, I want to thank the staff for all that they've done to help and that's okay. I should have done Braille, I guess. But I want to thank the staff for all the hard work that they put in. You've got a great staff on the Intelligence Committee that really put in a lot of time and are very patient with us. I think they're great tutors of us and preparing us to do the things that we do. I also want to thank Chairman Nunes for giving us an opportunity to chair a subcommittee. He has led the subcommittees take a much more active role than they have in the past, and I think it has paid off with the type of legislation that we've been able to pass through the House. So since assuming this cybersecurity NSA subcommittee chair, we've not run with it, but walked with it, but we've ran, and we've been able to pass 2 good bills in a bipartisan fashion. We passed the Cyber Information Bill, and we also passed the FISA legislation, and the Intel authorization also. You know, y'all are very important to us, to this country. And you know, as I've said before, you don't have to be smart in Congress to be in Congress. But you do have to have a perception of what people are like and who's working and who's not working. And I can tell you for the past 5 years that I've been on the Intelligence Committee, there's not any people in this country that work any harder than our intelligence. And so I want to thank you for doing that and all the part that you play in it. When I joined the committee 5 years ago, I received a brief on cyber. The briefing was down in the skiff, and it was my first look at all the uneven threats that come from China and Russia and other state actors. And I didn't really I didn't perceive what it was really about, because I had not been involved in cyber before and really didn't understand it. And I don't think anybody on that committee really had a grasp of it and would think that we would wake up today, pick up the newspaper, and see all these cyber breaches that we have. I don't think anybody ever anticipated. This is a totally different type of war that this country has ever been in. And so even the public today, I don't think understand this. You can't imagine the number of calls that we got on the cyber legislation or the FISA legislation or the Intel authorization from people, you know, you're getting into my business, you're getting into my privacy. We had a member of Congress, we were doing a little tutorial for some of the members on the cyber and the FISA legislation, and we had one member in particular that said that this stuff could lead to pattern of life. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, you can take these phone numbers and put them together and you can tell somebody's pattern of life, and I just think that's getting into civil liberties. So I asked the guy at NSA, I said, how many phone numbers do y'all have? And he said, 584 million. And I said, okay, I want you to send those to his computer. And I gave him my cell phone number, 770-880-9529, and I told him, I said, all right, you take those numbers, my cell number, and tell me my pattern of life. He just smiled, but yet he still voted against it and still continues today to talk about how we take these numbers and provide information to the government that would cause them to look at and intrude on his life. But we don't get it, and I don't know what it will take for us to get it, but like us, all Americans in every situation, until it affects that individual, they won't understand it. And when it affects your life, it has some dire consequences to it. So at this point, families have probably received several notices saying that their personal information has been breached, not only just their bank account, but maybe their health information. Maybe somebody's gotten into the HIPAA files of some medical center or some hospital. I know they have on insurance companies. But you know, what's more private? I mean, you can get your money back, and after a while you can get your credit back, but you'll never get your health information back. And you can imagine what kind of chaos or what kind of information they could get to you, not only about you, but about your whole family. China and Russia have gotten very good at this. I don't think they're better than we are, but they pay people every day to do bad things. And hopefully we've got people, and all of you in this room, do good things in trying to protect us from those bad things. But as I've told the chairman before, we've got to come up with some type of offensive plan that we can do. And there's certain areas that we might could do that, but playing defense is not always the best. So we've got to play a little bit of offense. Can you imagine if they can get into these systems that they're getting into? Can you imagine what they could do with our power grid or our water supply, our electricity? You know, people are always talking about the price of electricity and how high it is, and the new environmental regulations that we've got is just going to drive that cost up. And people are upset about that. But when people go into their bedroom and turn on that light switch and it doesn't work, or go in the bathroom and turn on that faucet and no water comes out of it, that's when the hysteria is going to start. That's when people are going to realize that this not only affects maybe their bank accounts, but it's going to affect the way that they live every day, the way they raise their family. So we need to continue working to make sure that we have the ability to stop these threats, to stop these break-ins. And I think that we can come up with that. But it's going to take a lot of hard work, and I know that's what y'all are here to learn about and to share ideas. When it comes to sharing information, we've not really been able to do an adequate job of being able to share information, whether it's the NSA or our government sharing with the private sector sharing with us, or private sector sharing with each other. And so we think the cybersecurity bill that we passed out of the House is a great start. The only problem is it's gone to the dead zone. And Mitch McConnell has tried to bring it up, but unfortunately they tried to put it on another piece of legislation. You know, I've always been confused, and I don't want to get too partisan in politics here, but when the old majority leader was over there, Mr. Reid from Nevada, he ran the show. He's still running the show. And so we have got to do something to get this passed. Now, I think Mr. Reid and Mr. McConnell both know how important it is to get this piece of legislation passed. And so I hope that they can get over their differences and pass it and all the other legislation that the House has sent over to them. But you know, when you break into something like the OPM, and you start getting all of this information, the Russians, the Chinese, not only does it hurt the employees knowing that their information is stolen, and I've already had 2 staff members that's gotten letters saying they were stolen, but it also got into the security clearances. Now, can you imagine if you're a covert operator somewhere and all of a sudden they got your security information where you applied for top level security? You're not going to feel very safe where you're at. Now, I imagine a lot of those guys are being pulled out of the field or at least changing assignments. You know, after the Snowden event, it cost us hundreds of millions of dollars in the Snowden leak. We really don't know what the OPM loss is going to cost us. We really don't know how many people they got the information from. But you can believe they're not using this information for good purposes. And so the Snowden event cost us hundreds of millions of dollars, plus good intel sources, good intel programs that we were using to combat some of this stuff. They were given away. And not only that, we had the ability, or we lost the ability, to have the human intelligence that we need out in the field. So we don't know the cost of the OPM break yet. It's interesting that OPM said that it was nobody's fault. I'm going to use that next time I file my taxes. And the IRS comes back, I'm going to tell them, well, I can either tell them that my computer, all my emails got erased, or I can tell them it's not my fault. But that's something, isn't it? It's not their fault. Well, in my opinion, it was their fault. And they didn't know who was hooked up to their servers. They didn't know what was being done. And they should have at least recognized who all was on that system, who all was on that internet. But that's one of the things that I guess they just overlooked. So we're trying to fix that in Congress. We're passing some good legislation, and like I said, we're trying to make the Senate get it onto the floor, because the quicker we can get on this information sharing, the quicker we will get to be able to solve our problems. The other thing is, as I said, you look at the damage that has been done, and we can estimate what it is, but we won't know what it is. I serve on the select committee, as Murray mentioned, on Benghazi. And we've learned a lot about information sharing on that committee. Now, it's interesting that, you got the OPM, it was nobody's fault, but they didn't know who all was on their system or what devices were on their system. And that seems to be contagious, because the State Department doesn't know either. We had a Secretary of State that was on a private server. Now, we don't know what information she really put on that server, or what information was national security stuff, or what she relayed through the State Department. We don't know that, because we don't have the server. And at the same time, who knows who could have broken in to that system. So we have really got to pay attention. And our government has gotten so big right now. I mean, it is so big that it's hard to get in and look at the little things. And I think that's the reason that you see so much waste, fraud, stupidity, and other things that affect us every day. They affect that end user. And I think that's what we don't realize, is that the American people, the citizens of this United States, are the end user of our government. And the one thing in particular, they want to feel protected by their government. And so we have got to make the government employees. I know many of you work for the government, and I thank you for that. Thank you for your service there. Some of you are contractors. And I thank you for that. But we have got to make sure that we make everybody understand the importance of what's going on in the world today, and especially in this high-tech atmosphere that we live in. And technology is changing every day. If you bought an iPad yesterday, it's out of date. And so, as this technology changes, we're going to have to be the leaders on this. People, you in this room, are going to have to be the leaders. And you're going to have to share your knowledge with members of Congress. Because as I said, you don't have to be smart to be in Congress. There's a lot of people up there that think they know everything. They went to school too long. They couldn't handle it. And so now they're in Congress and they're trying to tell everybody that they know everything, and they don't. And our time's very limited. If you go into a hearing to question somebody, and I'm sure some of you in this room have testified, you get 5 minutes to ask somebody a question. What can you really find out in 5 minutes? So we need to start paying more attention, especially on the intel side, as to what's going on. And we need to make that a priority. And we are in the Intelligence Committee. We're making that a priority, and we're working on it every day. And the staff's working on it. And we're going to be bringing some folks in to talk about this and find out what we can do. Because to me, government's job is to remove the barriers, whether you're in private business or whether it's the government business. Our job is to move the barriers so you can do your job the best that you can without interference. Look, if there's something about home building, I can answer that. But when you get into cybersecurity, and you get into nuclear energy, and you get into a lot of these other things, I have to depend on other people to help me with that. And so that's where you come in. You have got to be an asset. Don't be afraid to come to us in a committee or a member or whatever and share your ideas. Now, I know that in some departments that might not be very popular, but we're the ones that can fix it, or at least we can try to fix it. But if we don't know what to fix, we can't do it. So I encourage you to put an effort forward, not only with your coworkers and in your whole department, just to make sure that you're getting that information out and you're getting it to the people that can really do something about it. We need to tell our story better. I went to a conference and this gentleman was talking about that our party didn't have, my party, didn't have a message. They said, and if you do have one, you're not getting it out. And he said, the way you get out a message is through a story. And so we've got a story to tell. And we need to be telling that story. We need to be telling it better about what's going on. People are afraid right now. In this world that we live in with all the terrorist action and everything that's going on in the world and the different enemies that we're fighting, and you know, Alan Jackson's got a song that says, "Who's cheating who?" Sometimes I wonder who's fighting who, because we don't know. And so those are things that we've got to find out, and that's what the cyber community is able to provide for not only members of Congress, but for the person, for the DOD, and others, so we can combat this threat that we face. So I'll just close with this. It's a privilege to serve in Congress. Less than 11,000 people have ever had the honor to do what I do. That's pretty amazing. I still get chill bumps when I walk in the Capitol. And I think, you know, how did I get here? What happened? Now I've spent the last 10 years trying to figure out how a lot of other people got there. But you know, it's an amazing thing that this country gives the opportunities that it gives. So each one of us has an opportunity to help this country because it's helped us. And I know that y'all are going to do that. I know that you're at the front line of doing this. I want to thank you for doing what you do. I want to thank you for me. I want to thank you for my wife and my kids and my grandkids. And all the people in the 3rd District of Georgia, all the people of Georgia, and all the people who live in this great country. Thank you, and I hope you have a very successful event. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Why don't you join me, if you would, in thanking all of our speakers again. I want to very quickly draw your attention to your conference packet. Most of you have probably had a chance to look through it, but if not, please do so. There's information on all the tracks there. The tracks will begin at 11:15 down on the 2nd floor. As you're circulating through the conference facility, the center, if you have questions, please see anyone who's wearing a staff badge, and we'll do our best to assist in any way. Once again, I want to welcome you to the Information Assurance Symposium for 2015. We're now going to adjourn this general session, move to the tracks starting at 11:15, and I will see you back here tomorrow morning. Thank you.